Good morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being a part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, it ain't working without you guys. So thank you so much for being here as we get open for business here and we wake up the football gods. Wake up here, guys. Whoo, boy. The first quarter of the season is in the books, and we've had some embarrassing times thus far. But you know what? We need to put that behind us. Okay? You can't live in the past. I can't change anything that happened yesterday, last week, the week before. In fact, I can't change anything that happened 2 seconds ago. I can only go forward and deal with what's coming and trying to figure out and how to fix the problems that we have right now. And the problem we have right now, the biggest problem, and everybody always has a lot of problems. You have big problems and little problems. You know, they say take care of the little stuff because the big stuff garners your attention. Okay. So the little stuff you kind of miss. In this case, I think we got to take care of all of it. There's a complete breakdown in the defensive side of the ball. We'll deal with the offensive side later. The offense has a lot less problems. Fumbling is the biggest problem on the offensive side there, but and injuries, of course, the offensive line, those garner attention as well. But you could deal with what you've got going on in the offense. You're still able to score points. The problem is on the defense, the other team's able to score points as well. And a lot of people's solution is just fire Mike Nolan. Well, here's the reality. The die is cast for this season. Firing Mike Nolan will only be, that we got rid of him, that red meat, that instantaneous glorification where you think that, all of a sudden everything's going to get better. But the reality is, I still believe the biggest problem we have on the defense, whether you think the philosophy is wrong or not, doesn't matter. The reality is the problem is not enough time to implement it. How many times have you seen a team fire somebody in the middle of the season and all of a sudden they turn around? It doesn't always happen when you have somebody who's in charge. It's not enough time to teach something new. Now, I will say that when we got rid of Paul Alexander on the offensive line coach, who Mr. Ketchup Bottle, who his big thing was the intelligence of the offensive lineman. Whether a person could start for him had to know that you tap on the side of the ketchup bottle at the 57, so that way the ketchup comes out the bottle. Now, personally, I think that's antiquated. It's ridiculous because who actually has ketchup bottles anymore? They're all squeeze bottles now. Seriously. It's a generation of squeeze bottles. So, Paul Alexander, get your ass up out of here, man. Get out of here. And so we went back to Colombo as the offensive line coach, and that helped the offensive line along with having Amari Cooper, which ended up giving us a target, which kind of spread things around. But when you're talking about a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator or a head coach, now you're talking about a philosophy. You're talking about the plays. And part of the problem of this season, not the only problem, is I believe a lack of players knowing where they need to be. That's the bottom line. They're hesitating. They're kind of half-stepping. Now, I was taught if you're going to mess up, if you're going to F up, don't F up at half speed, half-assing. If you're going to mess up, at least be going full speed. Because if you make a mistake, that's bad. But if you make a mistake and you do it at half speed, that's even worse. But I don't see guys, they look like they're hesitating, they look like they're lost, and they're not sure they're where they're supposed to be. And they're so worried about making a mistake that they make mistakes. And I don't know that bringing somebody in right now is going to change that. It's not like there's a whole lot of defensive coordinators that are just looking around that are looking for a job like Wade Phillips or anything. And maybe that's a possibility that you bring in somebody like Wade Phillips. But we do need to figure this out, and it needs to be at least internally how to play better. Now, Mike McCarthy, of course, stands by his defensive coordinator because, well, he's not going to throw him under the bus. He hired him. Now, as Cowboy fans, it's funny because a lot of times we want stuff to happen, but they always say, be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. We used to say that Jerry Jones was always, doing too much with Jason Garrett. He's too much control. Jason Garrett couldn't be Jason, and Jerry Jones is the de facto coach. To me, this season felt like, okay, we got Mike McCarthy. He's got a Super Bowl pedigree. Lord knows he's kicked our ass here in Dallas in our own stadium. Lord knows he's had comeback victories like Matt Flynn coming back against us when we were up 26-3. That this guy has experience that Jason Garrett didn't have. We're going to let him run the team. We're going to let him pick his coach. In which case he did. He picked all his coaches. And Mike Nolan originally hired Mike McCarthy. So Mike McCarthy hired from New Orleans Mike Nolan, who at the time was linebacker coach. And when you look at Mike Nolan, we got Mike and Mike. When you look at his resume, the things that were happening with New Orleans had a terrible defense. Mike McCarthy was the linebacker coach. And you looked at how their linebackers played. You looked at how Demario Davis, who was already a good player, elevated into a great player, how they play downhill. And I believe that that's the way Mike Nolan wants this defense to play. You want Jalen Smith to be using that speed, flying up on the line, getting penetration and things, and coming with force. I don't believe that Mike Nolan did that in New Orleans and didn't want to replicate that here in Dallas. And that I don't see yet from this defense. And that's where I think it's been lost in translation, or it's just not getting there just yet, where it's instinctual. I think at this point, firing him is not going to help you unless it's one of those things that the players just can't stand him and aren't responding to him. I don't know that that's happened. I see the players are flustered. I've heard a little bit of, Jalen Smith talking about it's a little too complex. Maybe it needs to be simplified. And maybe, they're overwhelmed from going from where they were with Rod Martinelli to here it is with Mike Nolan. But I hate to say, trust the process. But half of the battle is believing in what you're doing. If you don't believe it's going to work, it's not going to work. So the bottom line is, what do we do? Well, I look at it at this point and say it is what it is. And bringing somebody else in here, player-wise or coach-wise, it's too late. This season is what it is. Now, a lot of people want Snacks Harrison on the defensive line. Well, Snacks Harrison, he's actually going to visit Seattle today and then to Green Bay. So you're behind the curve on that one the same way you're behind the curve on anybody else. Right now, there's not a lot of great players that are just sitting around waiting that are in perfect shape, ready to go. Eric Reed, ready to just step in and make a difference. Eric Reed, that have been working their ass off, that literally look like they're ready to play like Eric Reed. So you've got what you got. Now, if there's any good news, Woozy and Anthony Brown, I know that sounds like, oh, that's it. Those guys will be coming back, and those guys have a little bit more experience and maybe will help you more than where you are right now. Sorry, I don't have great news. I can't tell you to say off with his head, but the reality is this is the guy we have at least for this season. So, all right, y'all. I'm going to be on the road this morning. Got to go down to Waynesboro and take care of some more stuff on that apartment. And I'll be back tonight. So As always, I want to thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. As always, we'll bring you the news on the Dallas Cowboys. I'll see you soon.